And we are live. My name is Hetal Doshi. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I was pushed over a month and a half ago by some really, really caring friends to make sure that I do my part to serve the community during this period of MCO. And so, as part of my service, I've decided to call upon a whole bunch of amazing people to share their experiences and give us some tips and insights as to how we can also look after ourselves and each other better during this interesting period of time. So, we've called upon experts, we've called upon professionals, we've called upon really, really powerful people in their own industries, in their own fraternities. And we've also called everyday heroes just like you and I. Today with us is Dr. Hartini Zainuddin. I know a lot of you know her, and a lot of you love her, and a lot of you love her work. She is a child activist and currently works as a consultant for the government and also with UN organizations. She has co-founded Yayasan Chalkit, a 24-hour crisis center for kids. For those who don't know, Yayasan Chalkit is a drop-in center providing meals, activities, therapy, case management, and educational programs for at-risk children in Chalkit. Chalkit is also quite notoriously known for requiring a lot of support for potentially the underprivileged in Malaysia. So together with me is Dr. Hartini Zainuddin. I'd like to introduce herself. That would be a much better introduction from her. Dr. Hartini, a little bit about yourself, please. How in the world did you land in this field?
Well, hi again, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show. I actually started out as a volunteer, and I always tell people if you want to know more about something that you're passionate or curious about, then volunteer. So I started out actually as a volunteer when I was 18 years old, and then I was in the States after that, and I just started volunteering, working with different groups and organizations, and I really got into it when I moved to New York, and got involved with inner city school kids and after school arts educational program, and I worked for a nonprofit there and did all this stuff. So when I came back to America, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to work with children. I knew that it was going to be children who are marginalized and in crisis. I just didn't know where. Even though I had been back in Malaysia, the plan was always to go back to New York, and I never went back. So I volunteered.
Malaysia needed you more, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I volunteered. I went to who's the chairman, who's now the chairman of Yayasan Chalkit, Tan Sri Rizali, who I had known for a long, long time. And I said, I want to volunteer. And he was the chairman then of Yayasan Salam, which is a not-for-profit organization. It was very much like set up like the Peace Corps of Malaysia. So they heard the Bronx because I worked there, and then sent me to Chalkit. So I remember going to Chalkit and looking around the center. I volunteered at the daycare center, and then saw all the gaps because I worked with children for so long in America. It may not be the best system in America, but there are rules and laws and policies. And there seem to be no rules and laws and policies for non-Malaysian children. And many of the children who were visiting, that were at the daycare center, were children who had no birth certificates. Most of them, 90% of the children had no birth certificates at that time. And we couldn't determine whether they were Malaysian or Malaysian. They were just children. And the reason why I say that was what was one of the first questions the authorities asked when I went to ask for help, the Malaysian, non-Malaysian. And for me, it's like, it's a child, right? Who does it matter? And they were like, yeah, it does. I just thought. So that's when I decided that I was going to do something about it, ask the people who were working there, the adults who were working there, what they needed. They told me they wanted a place to bring the children home to take showers because they were sleeping on the streets at that time. There was not enough food, some kind of educational program and health services, maybe BCG shots. I really thought it was just BCG shots. So I helped them set out the center, move to a bigger place, and thought I'd leave, and then never left because you sort of, children are children, and for me, it's like I am the biggest kid on the block, right? I am such a Peter Pan. I suffer from this. I am Peter Pan. Like I never grow up. I love hanging out with kids more than I do with adults. And so when you start investing in the work that you do, and you have names to faces of children, and you get to know them and their mothers and their families. It's very hard for me to let go. And so I just never did. And I sort of carved a space for me, thinking that, I was going to stay for a while, help them set it up, and then leave. But I sort of never left. Even if I went and did other work and did other jobs because they were paying jobs, they paid more. I would always still work in childcare, and I was always
Right.
So that's
amazing.
Yeah. So that's a long story.
I love the concept of Peter Pan, and absolutely, if you become who you're surrounded with, right? So if you're constantly surrounded by kids, then no,
I'm such a kid person. It's yeah. I am such a childish person. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's amazing.
No.
That's the way we're supposed to be, right? I'm sure
well, I think so.
childish. I'm sure you're childlike.
I'm childish for sure. Yeah.
So, Dr. Hartini, what is the aspiration here?
For the work that I do?
What's the North Star?
I think for me, I can't even say for children to have the right to play, because there's many places in Malaysia where children don't have playgrounds. Chocolate doesn't have a playground, Science doesn't have a playground, certain places children don't seem to have that right to play, because they're always no food, or they have no parents, or their parents can't take care of them, or there's no place of safety. So for me, that's the ultimate, that all children should have this right to play and have a childhood and grow up happy and play and use their imagination and do all these wonderful things that I did as a child personally. But before you get to that, it's the right to education. It's the right not to be hunted and harassed. It's the right to not get hurt. It's the right not to get beaten or raped or stuck or afraid. And that's what's happening a lot. It's not just in Chowkit. There are pockets of children everywhere in Malaysia and around the world where you're always afraid. If you're a refugee, you're afraid because you're running away from your home, then you're on a boat, then you're coming here, or you're traveling with your family or alone across borders because you're fleeing death, right, and war. If you're a stateless child, you grow up with no birth certificate and no papers, even though you're Malaysian, your parents are Malaysian, you're born in this country, you'll die in this country, you'll never leave this country, but the country will never recognize you if you don't have papers. Being a stateless child is horrible, so that right to play is gone. Being a migrant child, a child of parents who are migrant or one parent is migrant, is also denying a child a right to play. Never mind the school, health services, the right not to be detained or be afraid, running away. There's so much fear in children. Never mind, as long as there's one, then I don't think my work is done. So when all children have equal rights and access to equal services, and all children are happy in one way or another, then my job is done. But until then, my job's not done.
Right. And Dr. Hartini, majority of the children that you're talking about, the ones that you
Malaysians,
are they? I know. You probably hate this question, but are they typically Malaysians or are they typically?
75% of my children are the children in Chowkit are Malaysians. 25% are refugees, stateless, and migrants. So for me, I have to make that distinction because donors ask sometime because of their constitution that says you can't provide services to non-Malaysian children, so we need to tell them this. But for me, it's like children are children, they're all children. I'm not going to ask someone for an IC to give food. It's just not going to happen. But so we have to, you can tell I memorize that line often. It's like 75% of my kids are Malaysian, 25% are not, stateless, refugees and stuff. For me, the children, period, children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I do hate that question, but you're right. Everybody does ask that. It's what most people want to know.
So why do we keep asking this question then? Because there's so much xenophobia. I don't know if you noticed, but during MCO, there's been so much xenophobia against non-Malaysian children, whether they're refugees and stateless, and nobody seems to want to understand why they are the way they are or why they're in this predicament. And you need to put yourself in a child's shoes to know what it's like to hear adults saying bad things about your family when they don't even know you, saying bad things about you when they don't even know you. You cannot tell the difference between a Malaysian child, non-Malaysian child. They speak the same language, they look alike,
You can't. It's that piece of paper that says that they're not Malaysian. But for all intents and purposes, whether they're Rohingyas or refugees or stateless Malay or migrants, they all speak Malay, and they all look alike, and they are children.
Yeah.
So for me, when a child says, why do they hate me and why do they hate my family when they don't even know me? All I can say is there are good people too, and there are
Right.
people who love you and care about you. So forget those people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess xenophobia, very rightly said. I was just speaking to Katie Lee as well from Hope Malaysia. You may or may not know her. And one of the things that she told me that was really profound, very simple but very profound, is basically just not having a connection, not having had a chance to work with, or to play with, or to connect with any of the children we're talking about. That non-connection makes us have all of these weird ways of labeling people that makes it easier for us, but definitely not the right way of behaving as human beings. And so I was
exactly.
yeah. And she was just saying that it comes down to even how people donate. When because we don't have the connection, because we don't understand what is going on, because we've never gone to where you have gone to, the places, the situations, the experiences that you've had, and that we should, as human beings, connecting from one to the other. Because of that, people tend to just throw in money and as form of donations, and they want to take photos to look like they're doing something pretty. Yeah, but you don't actually know what's going on because there's no connection whatsoever. I wanted to ask you, what is this process like? So take us through a day in Dr. Hartini's life. How did
yesterday?
Maybe not today, but generally, like, how does it work? So do children come to you? Do you approach them? And then what happens from there? So take us through a process.
So in the early days, because I don't do day-to-day in Chowkit anymore, I work on policy levels, and yes, I get the cases. If I don't get the cases every day like my colleagues do in Chowkit, because they're there every day, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. I get the cases when in Chowkit. I'll get the cases from my colleagues if they're really difficult. When the police are involved, the trafficking cases, the cases where, like this incest case, for example, cases where you need a little bit more help and a little more networking and sort of information from different people that maybe my colleagues can't get immediately. Not that they can't get it, they can't get it immediately. And I just tend to be a bit more pushy. So that's one way. So those are the things. I'll get referred to when it's time to make a decision about a really tough case in Chowkit. The cases that I get are the cases usually that, honestly, people have asked everybody else and nobody else can solve it, and then they ask me because I'm different, I guess. Different not because of what, but because I think out of the box, and I don't follow rules very well. And I don't take no's very well. So I'm a little pushy, I'm a little rebellious, and I will try my damnedest to try to solve it. That's one. Number two, I think many of the cases that I get, I will talk to you, but like this incest case was through social media, I didn't get it because, someone called me. A lot of the cases that I get, whether they're pregnant young girls and stuff, are through social media. So someone will reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and private message me if they follow me, or they'll tell me to follow them back, so that I get these messages, I get the details, I make the phone calls, and then try to figure it out. When I can't and it's not my case and someone just wants information or someone or an expert that I can connect someone else to, then I do that. I actually introduced myself yesterday as a connector. My day is not typical. That's the problem. If it was typical, I knew what to expect. The issue is that I don't have a typical day. So today, for example, we got a call. I got a text message from someone who wanted funding for this refugee couple because their baby died. The baby was stillborn, and so it's not a matter of just finding money to pay for the burial, but it's paying the hospital for the cost and and paying for the burial cost. And then, there's the trauma and the counseling, who's going to do what. And, so there's a lot of coordination that goes to do. Then, it was, another case and checking on another survivor to make sure that she was okay. Then it was another case on something else. Then then it was okay for me, because I lived in New York for so much, I need to turn the phone or the TV on, so it's CNN for me. So I need to listen to my Anderson Cooper and my Chris Cuomo, and then I'm okay. But so I needed like half an hour of like each, like like the end of Anderson Cooper and the beginning of Chris Cuomo, and then I can go back and do my anything doing MCO, right? Then it's like, seriously, I mean, if you want to talk about coping mechanisms, that's my coping mechanism. That's like my anchor coping mechanism. If I don't have Anderson Cooper and Chris Cuomo in the morning on CNN, that is not a typical thing, because nothing in my work life is typical. That's my anchor. Right. And then you go through cases. Then you have to do funding proposals, or you need to go for meetings, or I'm a Acumen Fellow for 2020. So this whole week from 9 to 1 p.m. every day from Tuesday to Sunday, we have our first seminar, and it's like a whole bunch of work that we need to do, and homework and prep work, which I have not done. So there's a lot of things. There's stuff that I do. I know, it's like crazy. I mean, there's nothing typical about everything. There'll be like a phone call or a text message to JKM, or a text message to someone, or police, or like someone or something. And then I get scolding from my colleagues, like, you didn't do your case web management work, and I'll be like, oh, I hate that. Right. And then of course I have kids, right? And my kids have school, and my kids have homework, and my kids have things they need to get done. And there's the school wants, your Friday framework checklist that you make sure you go through all your kids' homework. So, I'm your typical single mother, crazy woman, kind of thing. Who, that's my typical day. Nothing's typical.
I love that you said that you're pushy and you're rebellious, and therefore you can get things done that others can't. So, why? Yeah, I'm not polite. Sorry.
I'm not polite.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's
when I want something done.
I wanted to ask you a question. Like, how important is it to be a rebel in fighting for children's rights? How important is it to be a rebel?
For me, it's very important, because if you were to just follow strictly by the law or policies they have in place, many children fall through the cracks. The laws and the policies, the laws are one thing. They're laws. They can't move. That's not subjective. The laws are there. But the policies and implementation and the interpretation of the laws is very subjective. Right. So if we don't like non-Malaysians, we don't like refugee children, we don't like mothers who have children born out of wedlock, we don't like runaways, we don't like, a lot of things, then those kids are going to fall through the cracks. Right. For different reasons. We don't have the experience, the welfare office is too busy, there's so many reasons why nobody, the child is not cute and lovable. I don't know, there's so many reasons. Right. I say cute and lovable because I'm living with preteens and they drive me up the wall. Sorry, I think we tend to look the other way when the child is not yours. When the child is not your child, when the child is not Malaysian, we tend to say, well, it's not my problem, it's someone else's problem, it's another country's problem. But it's not. If the child has no family or anyone to take care, to be able to protect them, then I feel it is our job and our responsibility to step in and protect and try to do the best you can for the child. And so I don't take no well, because no isn't good enough. The no has to turn into a yes. So my ex-boss in New York always told me, she said, there's no such thing as an unfound solution. No such thing as no. There's only an unfound solution. So go find it. So for me, it's that's the answer. There's no such thing as no when a child's concerned. Go find the solution and just make it work. So yeah. So, we can't accept the fact that we put children in detention because they're not Malaysian. So we can't accept the fact that, children are sold and that children trafficked. We can't accept the fact that if you're a child born out of wedlock, you're not entitled to certain things or a name or whatever it is, right? For any religious or cultural purposes. It's not acceptable. It's not. This is a child. This is not policy. So for me, policies are man-made, laws are man-made. You can change your mind. You can change the laws. Finish. Protect the child. So I'm pushy.
Yeah.
I'm pushy.
And
I'm very pushy.
I love what you're saying. Honestly, as you're speaking more and more, you're starting to look like Oprah Winfrey. That's just crazy.
Oh my God. My daughter says that she actually, when she was young, and I read O magazine like every month. She looks at me, she's like, Mommy, you're famous. This is you. And I'm like, it is about
you're really
No, I know someone said that.
Like looking like her. And there's so many people out here who are saying hello. There's one who's saying, sorry, I can't really see all your names here. You're my idol. I really love your work. Another one is saying you're an awesome speaker. You work
Thank you.
so well with the grassroots. Some other friend of ours is saying hello, Hazel, hello, Hartini. And one more is saying, yay for being pushy and rebellious. So, what you've said so profoundly and so simply is, I don't take no well. The no has to turn into a yes. There is no such thing as a no. It's just only an unfound solution. But, as we are growing up as children, we're obviously told not to behave as such. We're obviously told not to behave as such.
Yeah.
And there are major consequences for being rebellious. Major. As children, we get, even as far as my childhood, we would get the backhand. We would be told.
I got rotan every day. Are you kidding?
So we were kind of conditioned, and as a psychologist, everything that we believe in goes back to childhood experiences, and the fear that it was evoked, the consequences, the rewards, and so then you kind of stop being as rebellious as you could be. But some of us, of course, continue to have that spirit, which is great. So my question to you, and I'm sure that you just had a normal rebellious streak, but was there a time where you really thought, my God, Hartini, you have outdone yourself in terms of being a rebel? Like, was there one time where even you thought that?
Yes, when I went back to high school. So I went back to high school for a ceremony. And the podium, so I went to Asunta Secondary School, So Sister Ando was my headmistress, even though she's retired. So we went to the ceremony like a couple of years ago, where the podium is still in the middle of the school grass there. There's a grass area and there's a podium. And I have flashbacks of me going for detention class every week, going before that podium in front of Sister Ando and getting sentenced in front of the whole school. Like, Hartini Zainuddin, detention class again for this week, being like standing there in front of the whole school. And then me going out that day because, there was a ceremony to sort of acknowledge like Asuntarians who had made a difference in people's lives. And I was one of them. So for that first time in 40 years or something, I actually went out there and Sister Ando was there and I was not getting detention. So that was like, for me, that was like, whoa. And like the whole school was there and they were clapping and this whole thing. And so, for me, that was like, wow. Oh, wow. That to make that second naughtiest girl, not the naughtiest, second naughtiest girl in school to someone who made a difference in someone else's life. That was like, cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
What would you recommend as, I know this may sound like a really weird question, but how would you upskill or train somebody to be, I'm not saying like you, but to see the value in being a rebel and to then be able to be a rebel for a good cause? How would you upskill or how would you take a person through this process? Because there are not enough out there.
I think
the reason why I'm asking you this question is because you were saying that you do what many don't and what many can't. And so therefore we need more of such potentially rebels with a good cause. So how would you get more of you out there?
I think you need to, I would say to people, just tap inside yourself to see what it is you're passionate about. and what your cause is. It could be something as simple as, recycling. It doesn't have to be me, right? It's child rights. That's what I'm passionate about. Someone else could be environmental, or someone else could be anything. But I think what you need to do is dig deep inside and dig down and sort of ask yourself, what would you do, and what are you passionate about? Because I think passion is very important. And what would you do to make sure that you reach your goal, whatever that goal is? For me, I'll give you an example. I didn't know what I would go and the extent I would go through for another child. I really didn't. I had like this drama in my head, right? About, and I tell people this all the time about, going slow motion in a movie in my head where I'm dodging bullets and carrying a child across, war-torn zones. This was my idea of child activism, yeah? Like I was going to go work for UNHCR. That was really it. And of course I didn't work for UNHCR and I did this instead. What would you do? How do I say this? What are your values? Your values. What are your values? For me, my values around children is very definitive. All children deserve to go to school. All children deserve to be loved. All children need to be with a family. All children need health services. All children need to be happy. So for me, when a 10-year-old comes up covered in scars brought by the police to me, and the police tell me that her mother beat her up and the mother kicked her and whatever it is, my instinct is to pull that child behind me and make sure that I protect her in the best way I can, so that when the mother comes 3 days later banging on the door because she wants to see a child, I'm not giving that child to her. So yeah. I think the extent to how far you push yourself in terms of what it is you want to do depends very much on what you believe in and what your values are. And for me, when a child's protection is concerned, the sky's the limit. I won't stop. It'll take me months sometimes, but I won't stop. But that's just me. For someone else, it's something else. I think you need to dig deep, like I said, inside and see what your values are and how far you'd go. Some people wouldn't raise their voice at a policeman. Some person wouldn't raise their voice at a meeting with welfare officers or the minister. I would never raise my voice in front of a minister, but you can be sure I will raise my voice somehow in the newspaper, in something on Twitter or somewhere. Because for me, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's who cares what people think of you. I'm not there to win a popularity contest. Who cares? I'm here to make sure that child is protected. So I really don't care what you think of me personally. It's not about me. So.
Right. I love that you say, how far would you go? And I think this is the best way of checking in to what extent you are really advocating for anything that it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You could be a bank teller, you could be a Grab driver, you could be a company. How far would you go to do the very best job, not for yourself, but for what it is that you're standing up for? And everyone's standing up for something. It doesn't matter what job you're in. And I really love what you say. And at some point you lose sense of yourself because it's no longer about you. It is about the cause. It is about the thing that you're fighting for. And so that sense of losing yourself and going as far as you can for a cause is probably the single most important determinant as to how far you would go in your career potentially as well.
I think so. But, I have gone to the point, but you don't go as far. Okay, I really push myself and I do, as much as I can to protect as much as a child, as much as I possibly can, and it takes however long it does. But there is a reality check that needs to happen. There's a buffer zone because I get traumatized. I used to go for counseling every week to debrief myself because you get secondary trauma so much because I was dealing with so many cases and children, and the trauma was real. So you go for debriefing sessions. So now what I've done again is I've started journaling again, and you sort of need to also ground yourself and have that buffer. For me, I think the buffering I still need to work on because I eat my potato chips and my cupcakes.
All right.
So I still have
Cooper,
potato chips and
a journal. Okay.
Yeah, but
Who would have thought? Who would
you
have
know,
thought?
but I have friends and I have a family support system, and
Yeah.
you know, and I have means to know how to cope. So I journal again, which I used
Yeah.
to, and I stopped and I started. I journal again. I put on my headphones and I listen to Korean, you know, love songs every day. You know, I listen to my 70s music. I play the piano or try to play the piano.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on social media. That's my escapism as well. I put on quotes. I try to inspire myself. I wake up every morning. I have a splash of color to just wake up and just do. I have coping mechanisms. I've also done this work for 40 years. So I have coping mechanisms to make sure I don't fall into the rabbit hole and lose myself completely. Because I
Absolutely.
know also that if I lose myself completely, I'm not going to be able to come back and help the next child. So I know that too. So
Well,
I think
you
passion is wonderful. To don't lose yourself completely that you don't know how to come back. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So we've got a lot of viewers chatting over here. Hello, Malaysian Opera. Another one is
huh?
asking, how do you decompress? But I think we've got the answer, don't you? It's
Yeah,
Anderson Cooper, potato chips, and journaling. Okay, so that's the three
exactly.
things everyone needs to start doing.
Yeah.
Teeny, you're super authentic and passionate in the space of child rights and nurturing. You are gold standard. Congrats.
Thank
Tini, I just
you.
wanted to pop into the space of children for a little while now.
Okay.
So, what is the deal? Why are children not looked after by, or what are not? I mean, I could be completely getting this wrong, but I guess the ultimate caretaker of a child would be the parents, isn't it?
Ultimately, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
But
what's wrong?
sometimes,
Why are children
sometimes
being?
parents can't take care of them. Sometimes parents can't, for whatever reason. A single mother with 4 or 5 kids, in childcare making $800, $1,000 a night is going to be working 3 jobs. Yeah. So where does she find the time to supervise the kids, take care of them? She's exhausted. I'm exhausted when I
Yeah.
come
Oh,
home.
I don't even
Your
have
kids
kids
are
now.
like scrambling around asking you questions. So you're tired. You have to take care of your kids. You can't afford. There's no insurance. You can't afford to, have one child sick. I had a mother the first week of MCO called me. She had 8 ringgit in her wallet, and she had a sick child and no food. Yeah. So these are single mothers who I've known for years working 3, 4 jobs. Yeah. Suddenly there's no job, they have no money, there's no food, and they have a sick kid. So they need help. So the problem with us is I think we don't provide enough support services for mothers and for parents. We don't provide enough outlets and programs and services for poor children and for marginalized children. We certainly do not have equal access of services for non-Malaysian children. If you're rich, terrific, you're called an expat. But if you're poor, you're a foreigner. And that's just not how it works, because
Oh
that's
yeah,
exception.
yeah.
This is about children. Do they deserve to go to school? I ask people this, and I actually get hate mail saying, why are you helping a refugee child or a stateless child? I'm like, did you hear that word child? How can they fend for themselves? Well, their parents. What if their parents can't work? Where are they supposed to get food? Are you telling me I'm not supposed to help children because you don't like what the parents stand for? That's not your issue. You should be worried about the child not having food, not having education, not having access to health services. You should be worried and traumatized and put yourself in those parents' shoes who can't afford to take their child to the hospital, or who can't afford and do not have the dignity instilled because it's been robbed from them, because they're poor, they're marginalized, they're shunned, they're discriminated against. I have 14, 15-year-old pregnant girls, pregnant, who are terrified, who are having babies, who's going to have a baby who got kicked out of their house. Where are they going to go? Never mind that. Never mind the shame or the stigma, which is so uncalled for. Then you have to go to the hospital. Then you have to deliver. Then you have to answer to the welfare hospital and the religious policies or whatever it is that's going to say, you need to go tell your parents or we're going to arrest you and take your child. You can't have these kind of things going around. So there are loads of reasons why parents can't take care of their child or won't take care of their child for whatever reason. They're not good enough parents. No, I honestly think whatever it is, if the parents can't take care, then someone else needs to step in. And it cannot always be the government. Yeah. to be fair to the government. They're like in 101 places. They can't do everything. It's our job as citizens. Like it's our job, with this MCOT to take care of ourselves and empower ourselves and make sure that, we make sure that everybody in our community is safe. So what more children?
Right.
So I say yes, the responsibility of a child is with a parent, but if the parents cannot or won't, then we need to step in. What's the big deal? Step in.
Right. And what would you, okay, I just want to go back to parenting because it's such an important space that I'm not 100% sure whether we have explored that space enough. And please kick my ass if I'm really going out of line.
No.
So when we and I'm even thinking about marriage, not just parenting, right? Like the day that we decide to take on a responsibility of getting into a family kind of a status and then procreating, right? So when we want to drive a car, we know that the car is so powerful and can cause so much damage that we need to get a license before we are able to drive a car. And that's just a car, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think about marriages and what do you think about, and again, I might be coming from a very privileged kind of a mindset. Just mind you, I have no children of my own because I don't think I'm capable of raising children as well as I should or could. But I've screwed up a lot in my life as well. And I feel that there should be so much education before getting married. And also before having kids, so much so that you almost need a license to be able to do it. That's my thinking, but I could be completely wrong. What are your thoughts about family, the setup of families? And I'm sure that, different levels of privilege, sentiments. For
I don't know. I honestly, I cannot actually comment about parenting simply because I am from a non-unconventional parenting. I'm a single mother who adopted children. None of the children my own. So that's very already unconventional, I guess, in a lot of ways. And if someone were to give me a manual, I'm just speaking about myself, If someone were to give me a manual on what the best way is to bring up a child, I would take that manual and throw it over my head. Because I am already freaked out. I think I've made a big decision to adopt. And, and people telling me what to do, being the rebel that I am, would never work for me. Yeah. However, I have my mother and my grandmother and I have all these people around me, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, my friends who give me advice or who show me what needs to get done. So if a child gets sick, I promise you, I go to my mother because I really freak out when my child gets sick. If someone tells me, you need to do this and stuff, then yes, I would. There's YouTube as well. There's lots of different ways. I think parenting is very, very subjective. It's very much based on your values and your experiences. But there are universal experiences and collective values, I think, that all parents have. Loving a child should come, whether it comes naturally at first or comes later, it'll come. I didn't decide to love, my children when I first saw them, but when I made the decision to adopt them, I did. There's no manual on love. There's no manual on caring, and there's no manual on wanting to do what's best for your child. I think that comes. You do the best you can given your circumstances. It's not rich people can have more children and poor people can't. But you have to make sure that you have what it takes to take care the best you possibly can of your children. All right, that means no beating. Okay, I'm saying there's my kids around me. They're not. No beating, no nagging. I nag all the time. No. So I mean, but there are universal rules. You don't hurt your child. You don't punish your child. To an extent that you torture them. You don't deny them food. You don't deny them love. You don't deny them. These are universal values that all parents have, that if you go from in 10 different homes, this is what's common amongst the loving families. What's common amongst the unloving families would lead to that social the abnormality and the no bonding and the anger and the you can tell the patterns, right? So I don't think okay, but there's no manual to parenting. There's no one right way to parent, which is why I don't believe that there should be, a class on parenting. Maybe some parents should. I don't know. Maybe if they mess up once, or they screw up once, or they hurt their child, the counseling service comes with parenting. Yes, I agree to that. But I think, every new parent, you're just going to have to just wing it and
Right.
love them, and and you have enough experiences from the people around you who'll be able to help you. You don't need a class for that. The class will come when you mess up and you abuse your child. Then yes, I do believe there should be parenting classes on that,
Right.
and counseling.
If you, knowing that bringing up a child is absolutely the work of a village, and in this case, probably the work of a country, the country raises a child potentially.
Yeah.
If you were the prime minister, I'm not saying the prime minister of Malaysia, I'm just saying if you were the prime minister of a country, and you know that these are the issues that you've been facing, and you've had to fight a really hard fight, and there's a very simple way to end this drama. What are maybe one or two things that you would do to fix, or at least minimize the impact or the pain of this problem?
Well, first of all, I would lift all the reservations on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have 5 more reservations on the UNCRC that needs to be lifted. So we lifted that would help. That would include the reservation on access to education for all children, primary school children, children for primary school education, let alone secondary. Children all should have education regardless. If they're rich, poor, Malaysian or Malaysian, any child in Malaysia who lives here should have education up to secondary school or tertiary or so on. The right to identity. There's also, there's all the other reservations. But the one thing I would do is lift all the reservations on CRC. That would help, because then you say it is wrong to deny a child any sort of rights, right? So right to identity, right to education and stuff, all would be there. Number 1. Number 2, I would make sure that no child was in detention or prison. There has to be different ways of mitigating sort of accountability of children who make mistakes or create violations. No child should go to prison or detention. I think that every child deserves to be with a family who loves them. If the family doesn't love them, then we need to make sure that there are certain precautionary measures that are in place, whether the child goes to a foster care family that is loving and kind, or there are other people who can take care, who be a part of the family, or they get adopted, or they get fostering. There's lots of different ways. We shouldn't be having large numbers of baby dumping in Malaysia. That's ridiculous. That every child, every community should have a playground for children. Every child should go to school. Those would all help. When you give a child an education, it's that right to fish and that whole thing that we love to talk about. We don't seem to understand what that means. It's not about just lifting the child out of poverty when you give them an education. It's allowing that child to have the opportunity to make better decisions about their lives when they have more skills, when they have more information. So when you deny a child an education, it's really not about, not going to school kind of thing. It's really about letting their mind and the opportunities sort of flourish and be there for them to make all these choices in life that are better for them, right? The best possible choices.
Right.
We cannot deny children education and access. Health services, how on earth do we deny any child a right to be born because their parents can't pay for their hospital bill? Or, I don't know, take away a child from a mother because the mother has a child born out of it. These are things that I don't understand in 2020. The right for a child to counseling services if they need it. There aren't enough counselors. You know this. There's not enough psychologists, child psychologists. There's not enough people who know how to communicate well with children. I don't know how to wean my child off the internet. If you can tell me, please tell me how to do that. I think they spend too much time on the internet and not enough time outside and playing and imagining. There's not enough imagination outlets for children to be able to sort of dream and think of different possibilities, I think, as well. And so we need to sort of inspire and pull those children away from their little gadgets and their phones.
Right. So there are a lot of things that we should be doing. Is there some things that we should stop doing, or we should stop people from doing? I don't know, maybe, limiting the number of children per family. I don't know. I'm just being completely
Oh
driving
my
away.
God, you have, I'm working with my friends from 6 other NGOs, and we're looking at, providing, funds for mothers who can't afford to pay their hospital bills, or, for whatever reason. And yeah, family planning would be great. Sex education would be really wonderful. In the true sense of the word, like giving them options would be great. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just like, where are the condoms? We need family planning. We do.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So I think, yeah, the idea of sex education and family planning. I have one more question, actually.
yeah.
Sorry, this is a bit personal because
No,
children are personal thing. There's just so much that a child should have access to that almost feels like you may
yeah,
as well, I don't know, it just feels like murder, actually, if you don't look after children properly.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, we talk a lot about sex education,
Mm,
but we don't talk about relationship education. And in
yes.
fact, we talk about sex education before we even talk about relationship education. What do you
Mm.
think about that?
I think it's wrong. I think the first relationship that we should be taught to children is personal, their personal relationship with themselves. When you don't have self-esteem, then you have all these other problems as well. And also about relationships with other people. I used to tell these young girls who would come to me, all crying and pregnant and stuff. And I said, and they'd be turning the radio on and crying and all this stuff. And I said, Bila mun cinta tu kat radio aja ke? So they'll listen to like the saddest song and like fall in love with whatever the words to the song is. They meet the guy, they meet the guy and they fall in love with the words to a song. And then they cry. And then, but they don't know the first thing about relationships. They see what they see on YouTube. They see what they see about what their friends want or what their parents have or whatever it is. And they have no idea about the relationship with themselves and with others. They really, really don't. You're absolutely right. We should teach children that, about how to first like yourself, what is going through your mind, what is what is weird, what is not weird. My daughter, who's 12 now, but like a few years ago when she was 9, went through a whole episode of going through different things she thought she was suffering from. So she was a hypochondriac in the making. So, she'd have the flu and she said, oh, I have cancer. And then another week she's like, oh, mommy, I think I have ADD. I don't know where she got all these words, yeah, because she was 9 then, and then she'd be like, oh, mommy, I think I have anger management issues. She would like read whatever she read. And then, of course, it's a reflection on me and how much time she spent on YouTube, right? So I thought I'd put on the parental, requirements on the iPad so that she couldn't use it all. But then, of course, it was sort of impossible when I'm out and there's no TV or whatever it is, and she's not reading a book. So I still needed that iPad. So for me also, I'm a child activist. I'm not the best parent either. I think I do allow my children too much time on the internet and the iPad. But this YouTube and this TikTok and this thing, it's just like scary stuff because it influences how a child sees themselves and their relationship with another, which is so virtual and wrong in many ways because it's so plastic. It's there. It's just images. And children need, I think, to learn more about that, knowing yourself and knowing others as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely.
Currently, I thought maybe we just end off with some. Unfortunately, I don't really end off with statistics, but some statistics here. You say that all children should have access to education in secondary
Yeah.
school, so up until secondary school. How many % of children don't have
Yeah.
access to school here in Malaysia?
Secondary. Okay, I'll give you the dropout rate. So the dropout rate for secondary school kids who drop out of secondary school is either 1 in 5 or 1 in 6, depending on the stats that you're looking at. So it can be 20%, 20% of children drop out of school in secondary schools. Yeah, we're talking about Malaysian kids.
Right.
Refugee children, there are what, 30,000? Stateless children, there are I don't know how many, 100,000, 200,000. All
Right.
no school.
Right.
Migrant children, no school. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, yeah. So that should be a priority. If you're not going to allow a non-Malaysian child the right to go to government school and allow alternative education for these kids where it goes up to secondary school, allow the NGOs who are working with them to allow these kids, better quality education, access to, government exams if you want, or allow them some kind of, assessment examinations where it's recognized abroad if you don't want them here. Although I don't know what you're going to do with stateless because they're born here, they can't leave. So I think, I think we should also, for me, looking at alternative educations, we'd look at things like homeschooling programs, we'd look at vocational training, we'd look at guilds, we'd look at different types of skill building modules that would add up to some kind of profession where they can get some kind of diploma, assessment, and evaluation.
Okay. Yeah. So also, when we're talking about education, part of it should include sex education or relationships with yourself. Does our school does our schooling system in Malaysia actually have modules that teach children to learn about themselves?
I think LPPKN under the Ministry of Women does have sex education. I just don't think it's complete. I don't think it's enough. There's definitely no
school curriculum already. Is this part of the school
curriculum? I think the school curriculum program isn't enough either, from what I've seen. I think with government school kids, especially, I don't think there's enough of that, which should be the most important thing. Yeah, communication, knowing yourself, interpersonal, intrapersonal skills should be emphasized a lot more than what's happening now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. Especially in different phases. I mean, I don't think it can even be a one-off module because the hormones that you're fighting with as teenagers.
I wish someone else would explain to my kids that they're being hormonal and it's not just mommy going crazy. But
it could also be both, because a lot of times when the child is a teenager, the mom could be going through menopause as well. So it's a complete chaotic phase, both at the same time.
Have you seen some of my quotes on Facebook where it's like Mary Poppins saying, "Come here," and then all of a sudden it turns into Batman and I'm like screaming my head off? Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
And also for the parents would be, so that teenage phase is the toughest, not only for the teenager, but for the parents as well, because the parents would be getting promoted to new roles potentially, or having midlife crisis or menopause, and
post-midlife crisis. Yes, post-menopause. Yes,
absolutely. It's a whole combination, and I just thought maybe there is definitely room for anyone who's listening, and anyone who's thinking, what are all the amazing things that they can be doing in terms of activism? There is this field of parenting, family, children that is completely just scratch at the surface. There's so much more that we can and should do. Who's listening, I'm sure if you speak to Dr. Hartini, should be a great source to kick you in the right direction so that you know what you're doing. And I think if I could add one more thing, do you think that even amongst the child activism space, it is a little bit segregated, meaning everybody's doing bits and pieces of work separately, and maybe it's not completely integrated?
I think we're doing better now because of MCO, that everybody's had to come together to address one objective, and the objective is protection of children and also providing the right services. So I do think we're doing better. And yes, I would have agreed with you 2 months with you completely that we were segregated, siloed, backbiting, doing everything by ourselves. But I think because we care and we have a common agenda, which is protecting children, we are learning to come together to do better by children. But this is during MCO. Let's see what happens after, when the month is up and we all have to go out there and actually implement all these ideas and theory that we're all talking about right now, and how we're actually going to do what we say we're going to do. So that would be very, very interesting. But can I tell you something? I think your whole the whole issue on self-reflection, the self in terms of children, how they view themselves and how they view others, is the one thing that's lacking. One of the biggest issues I have with children, is self-esteem and how they think they're not good enough in a lot of cases, and communicating with adults. There's always the adult, my parents don't know me, my parents don't understand, only my friends do. And there's this whole hood mentality of, my friends know it's my family, which I think is great. But I think there needs to be more done in terms of addressing this issue of relationships with yourself and with others. And also for parents as well, who think they know everything, to know how to communicate with their children. Because I will tell you, I am definitely, as a child activist, not so good with communicating as well with my own kids. And I think that's the mommy role, that you think you have this certain idea of how you're supposed to behave.
No.
So
it's one of the toughest ones. But thank you so much for that. I also wanted to share with you that as an org psych, so my role typically, the context in which I work in is in organizations, and a lot of, or if not all of our research points back to adults having a poor sense of self-esteem. And a poor means either it's very low or too high, and both add up to leading to dysfunctions in themselves and creating dysfunctions in the relationships as well. So there you go. I mean, self-esteem that is not addressed in childhood definitely moves on to every other adult stage for the rest of your life as well.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of work to do, don't we?
A lot of work to do. And thank you for giving me the space to talk about this, and also to reflect, because there are things you're bringing out here that you don't think about so much as well. But it's there. It's just, it's at the back burner, and it should really come to the forefront in terms of what I think is most important.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we realize that works well in organizations that may differ from, potentially in the ministries or in NGOs, one of the things that I think can be quite valuable is outcome orientation, meaning what is the real outcome, and what is the one thing that leads to, the 20% of work that leads to the 80% of the outcome that we want. And I think for communities, we haven't really figured that out enough. So things like,
I'm going to stand up to just turn the light on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I love that. I love you doing that. That is awesome. That's cool. So, things like, I would also like to offer to anybody who's listening in and tuning in, I would definitely get you to pick up the book, The Nordic Theory of Everything. So it's a book about how the Nord, so in Norway, they actually are super clear about one thing, which is, as a human being, what do we want the most? And what is the thing that matters beyond anything else? And they pinned it down to love. So it's a very spiritual notion, but it's also very humanistic and very real, that they said that as a human being, all we want is love. And so all policies and the community and education and work was designed around how do we ensure that love works. So a lot of interesting things got broken down and disrupted to make way for things that really mattered after that. So interesting things like, I'm not saying I agree with this or disagree with this, that marriage was something that they decided wasn't important. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, but they were just saying that because marriages were breaking down so much, then you just go on the concept of love for as long as you can. But I'm not agreeing nor disagreeing, but what I really liked was the core, like what is the outcome that we really want? And for them, they were really clear that the outcome that we really want is love. But I think in a lot of other societies or countries, we haven't quite figured out what is the most important thing. Majority of us, the most important thing is still the GDP, right? Economics. And we know for sure that's not the most important thing. So Dr. Hartini for Prime Minister at some stage, hopefully, huh?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So I think maybe as a personal one, I know I've taken up a lot of your time, but was there a time where it was really, 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 really hard for you, and it felt like you were in a black hole, and you could safely say that the world felt like it was coming to an end, or that you had no idea what you were doing anymore? And the reason why we talk about this in this program is just to give light to everybody else who might be going through anything. So what was that moment?
Of course. Oh God, it's more than one of those moments. I actually,
What's the toughest
experienced
one?
it. Oh God, they're all tough, right? Because it is like the end of the world. I always call myself Chicken Licken during these times, because the sky is falling and the world is crashing, and you're falling into this black hole, and sometimes I let myself, feel sorry for myself, and really feel like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And the first thing I do is actually say I don't know what I'm doing, and I tell a friend or I tell a colleague uh, that I'm slipping, and I need to regroup. So it's either I need to sleep more. I usually a good night's sleep helps, or 2 nights of good night's sleep helps, or I take 3 days off and I go. I just do nothing. I go to the movies or something. There's a lot of crying. There's a lot of consulting with friends and experts. I'm one of those people who love quotes. Yeah, so I collect quotes. So I'll always go look for a quote that makes me feel better. So it's always like, the sun will shine tomorrow. The tomorrow will always come, and tomorrow's going to be a brighter day. And it's always light at the end of the tunnel, or where there is darkness, there will be light, and the light is, there's all sorts of quotes. So I try to pick myself up. Sometimes I ask friends for help. The world is always crashing, but you know what I figured? As long as I'm still standing and I have a brain, and I say this all the time because you just never know in this line of work. Yeah, you don't know that as long as I have a brain and I'm healthy, today I can still do something. And so it doesn't matter. I will just pick up and move on. But I do give myself a good cry, and I will have my food and my drinks and my everything and my journaling and my everything, and scream on top of my voice. And my friends will listen, and then I get on with it, because tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I love that.
And
I love that. Yeah.
and I also want to tell people who are going through this, if you think if you're out of control and you don't know, then ask for help. Just ask anyone. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. I think the worst thing you can do is think that you need to prove yourself to anybody.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
ask for help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the thing that I love the most about what you said is that you found a language to signal that you're not okay, and that is, I'm slipping.
Yeah, I'm slipping.
So that's your code word, and your friends know the code word as well, and that helps. So I think everyone needs to have a code word, like, I'm not okay, or I'm slipping, or the sky is falling. And then also to pre-educate your families or your friends that, hey, if I use the code word, I need a bit of help and support, and this is how I like to be supported. Because sometimes, unfortunately, you may not get supported the way that you like to be supported. It's very endearing that you collect these quotes, and frankly, I'm a huge fan of your quotes. For some reason, every time I see a quote from you, it resonates, and I'm just like scrolling and stuff, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's a good quote. And I'm like, who put that up? And I look back and I'm like, damn it, it's always her. It's always her. Why can't it be someone else? Why can't I have one more person? But yeah, no, your quote's amazing. And I love that. As long as I'm standing. As long as we're standing, we can still do something. Definitely reach out, get help and support that we need as well. So I'd really like to thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me again to be on your show, Ethel. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say as well that, thanks to COVID-19, the surprising joy of COVID-19, I've known about you, I've heard about you, I've read so much about you, I've looked up to you indirectly as well. I've never thought that we would ever encounter each other. And then one day I was like, hey, I should definitely get in touch with her. Someone was telling me, get in touch with her. And voila, here we are. So the surprise of COVID-19.
I definitely made friends as well. So I'm considering you a new friend as well. And then we can do something together after this is lifted and stuff, yeah? Because I think there's so much we're going to need to do with a lot of children, I think, who are suffering from trauma. There's a lot of trauma. So maybe we can work on something as well.
Absolutely.
But you kidding? Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity.
You're most welcome. It's such a pleasure knowing you. Please take care of yourself. We really need you, Alota.
Thank you.
God
Okay.
bless. See ya.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.